Welcome to Badger Beer Hour, where we try to condense 3 hours of Badger Beer news into one. I am here with my friends Andy, Chris Johnson, the Beer Baron, and Landon Cherney, my friend from up north. We will. I just want to say real quick. We would like to thank our audience for their patience with us. We weren't able to put on the show last week, so we are here this week for you, and we are happy to be here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are.
All right. I guess that means I'm on, huh?
You're up, Landon.
All right.
Going right into it.
So we're going to start with a huge Wisconsin beer story that broke right after last month's show.
Yeah. I was. The timing of this one is not great, especially with another week delay. But you've heard about this one by now. But let's kind of recap what went down. August 20, just 2 days after the last Badger Beer Hour, while I was in Stowe, Vermont, sadly. But it was. I mean, it was nice. It was good. But I wish I could have been with my dudes. Anyway. News broke that Asylum was for sale and would close by October and head to liquidation unless a buyer or new partner was found. This was pretty shocking news. Asylum is one of the state's bedrock breweries, and this news sounded like, at least that initial report sounded like it was kind of the end of the road for Asylum. They opened in 2005 and quickly found a flagship with Hopalicious, a pale ale that was kind of at that time on the front end of the rise in hoppy beers. It grew pretty quickly with statewide distribution, and by 2013, Asylum opened up a big new brewery with a tap room, full service restaurant, and a capacity of about 50 to 60,000 barrels a year of production capacity. That's a big part of this story. And to kind of put that number in context, Asylum had made about 10,000 barrels the year before that brewery opened. And even this year, a brewery as big as Lakefront only made about 37,000 barrels. So, and that's kind of why we're talking about this, is they just have not been making enough beer to justify all that overhead. Last year they were the number 4 volume craft brewer in Wisconsin, making about 4,000 barrels last year, plus I probably some additional barrelage in contract brewing that doesn't show up in their reports to the Department of Revenue. Of course, last year was weird, but like since 2014, that's a year after that brewery opened. They've been between 12,000 and 22,000 barrels, with that high watermark coming back in 2015. So the pandemic was certainly a factor here, but there's other stuff going on. And this is the main problem, is that they built a brewery of a certain size and did not grow into it the way that they expected to. So they're basically having trouble making rent. All this sounds really bad. And when I got home from my vacation out east, I called up Otto from Asylum for a follow-up column. I was kind of expecting this to be like very somber and basically an obituary for a cornerstone, very influential brewery in the beer scene, in the Wisconsin beer scene, especially, in the Madison area. But once I got Otto, I texted Otto and he called me back right away. He's like, he was chipper. I mean, he was like it was pretty clear that he was in a good mood. A lot had happened in those 2 or 3 days since the news had broken. He said they had an outpouring of interest in potential partnerships or outright purchase. Everyone who had kind of reached out so far had it, at least in that initial kind of contact, was interested in continuing the Asylum brand in some way, either outright purchasing, the brand along with the brewery itself, and then continuing to make Asylum's beer in some way. That would be very similar to what happened with Wisconsin Brewing in Lake Louis, where they bought few years ago. Wisconsin Brewing bought Lake Louis and has continued to make all their beers in the big Verona brewery. Or the other possible thing is with Ale Asylum is partnering to basically brew alongside of them and make use of all that unused capacity. And the big question here is like, who would that be? Who would that purchaser or partner be? Obviously, there are a lot of big names in the Midwest and kind of the Wisconsin brewing scene, as well as like other known entrepreneurs inquiring as well. So I don't know. I probably shouldn't speculate on that, but he said that there's other well-known business entities outside of the brewing business that are well-known locally. So we should be hearing news on this front relatively quickly or relatively soon. According to that initial report, Ale Asylum's assets are all going to auction in mid-October if no deal is made before then, and I would assume that we are very close. So I reached out to Otto this morning, and he said, this is quote, "Nothing concrete, but it looks promising for staying in place," which I think means continuing the brand in whatever way. More very soon. So those are kind of the high points of the story. And I'm kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are on this kind of these developments. I think we're going to be back on this story, next month for sure. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I imagine we had talked about this when we went, we started this during COVID anyway. But we had talked about how maybe there was going to be breweries that were going to fall. And surprisingly, we haven't had many fall. But when you go back to think about Ale Asylum being in such a place as big as they are, you really heavily rely on people coming into your building to pay your bills, not just selling beer. It's a destination.
Right. Yeah. And then you have the restaurant side of things too, which is a whole other thing that COVID had an effect on as well. But
right.
Yeah. And Chris, you and I were briefly chatting about this off stream, but you mentioned like the contract beers beforehand. I'm surprised that wasn't utilized more to kind of like try to fill in more of that space. But you also brought up that with Octopi and Wanakee right there with their facility, like that's probably pulling away a lot of that potential business. But I don't know. It still seems odd to me that like there's not enough to go around when it comes to contract brewery, but I don't know enough about that part of the industry to really say one way or the other, I guess.
Yeah. And like Andy, that's a good point. Like they have done a little bit of contract brewing here and there. Hey, Greg. And probably some more that hasn't really been made public, but I think it's tough to I'm not, I don't know where the break even point is for them, but like if you've got a 50 to 60,000 barrel brewery and you need to fill with 30,000 barrels of contract brewing, like that's not really what the brewery is built for. So that's a pretty tall order. And yeah, Octopi, is a newer brewery. I am assuming that their systems are a little bit more
made with that in mind.
Well, yeah, definitely that. But I mean, 5 years difference in brewing technology and stuff. Yeah, and the level of investment that I know went into Octopi. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think Ale Asylum cut corners, but 5 years is a pretty big difference as far as dry hopping and maybe fruit capabilities, which I don't think Ale Asylum planned for really at all because they don't do that or they haven't done that. And then Octopi, like the whole business is just oriented around craft or around contract brewing. So, Isaac Shawaki and that team, they take that very seriously about, being a partner with these clients. So yeah, it's a tough, I think it's a tough, that was probably a tough ask. Greg, you probably came on here to say something, right?
Yeah. I said I didn't want to say anything about Ale Asylum, but what I do want to mention is remember one of the things I mentioned here, and I also mentioned on my stream a bunch of times, was that Ale Asylum was selling 6-packs for $6. So I'm not sure how that all fits in all this, but I know that I know it was almost $6 to go to the brewery to get a full pour of Hopalicious. So the fact that I was able to get curbside $6 Hopalicious for $6, again, I don't know where all that plays into this. They probably had beer that they had to move, and they weren't moving beer. But at the same time, we already know how much more the cap is that you make from your bottled beer to what you make at your, when people come in, like Landon says.
I don't think they were losing money on those 6-packs. Maybe with packaging and everything, but I mean,
they were literally trying to move a lot of. Yeah, they were trying to move a lot of beer though. When you make that price, and then no one around you. I mean, we mentioned Untitled Art and Octopi. I mean, you couldn't get more of a drastic difference between $6 a 6-pack from Ale Asylum, and then you go up the road there, and we were just talking $4 for what, a 20-pack. I'm sorry, $4 for a 4-pack. Any of their Untitled Art, whether it be the seltzers or any. I mean, maybe the seltzers are lower. My point is that it seemed weird that they were doing that, and I took full advantage. I know a lot of people took full advantage, and ultimately, though, I'm not sure how that played in, but I just wanted to be noted that. Also, what that led to me to do though, Chris, is a lot of times was to buy food from them too. So we would go through, do the curbside. I would get a whole bunch of 6s for $6, and it was just Hopalicious though. Some of their bigger beers were $7 and $8. So it wasn't like they were selling their triple for $6 a 6-pack. They were selling the triple.
Those were all marked down too. I mean, it was and that was exactly the strategy with that, Greg. Is they were just trying to keep people employed and keep the tanks turning. I mean, early on, these breweries, all of a sudden, every draft account is just gone. Early on in the pandemic, this is every draft account is gone, and Ale Asylum, they have at least one 300-barrel tank. And so that would have been filled with probably Hopalicious.
Right.
And there's 300 barrels of beer just sitting there, and there's no place to put it.
Right. And they have a really nice in-house canning line too.
Yeah, they do. So they
really
have
nice.
that.
Right.
But I mean, they had to move stuff, and and then just keeping the lights on and everything. So yeah, I think.
So here's a point from Andrew too. I don't know if you want to comment on.
Yeah, it's straightforward. Is their line of seltzer? I think that was maybe 2019 that was introduced, around there. And so they were. I believe they were the first seltzer, Wisconsin craft seltzer brand. And and maybe it was a little too early, and the craft concept didn't translate. I don't know, but it's pretty clear that they've been trying a lot of different things lately, and we'll see. Now, I mean, all of this does not mean that it's not a viable brand going forward. I mean,
it's a very viable.
There's been a lot of interest, according to Otto, and it doesn't sound like the Ale Asylum. It doesn't sound like Hopalicious is going anywhere. It just maybe those dollars will sound like they may or will be going to somebody else. We'll see.
Sure.
I'll see y'all in a bit.
So we'll move along, but who would have thought that we got more breaking news? So we've got some real breaking news.
This is a hot one. This is today.
Yeah.
So my friend Bobby Tanzillo from On Milwaukee broke this one. Mob Craft Beer in Milwaukee is planning to open 3 new tap rooms in the next 2 years. And get this: Denver, Colorado, Woodstock, Illinois, and Waterford, Wisconsin. These would be new locations, all in addition to the Milwaukee place, each with some brewing capabilities and new partners in each venture. So they've been busy. We'll start with the Denver location because that's kind of the most eyebrow-raising one, right? This one's a joint venture with a taco place called Taco, Deetacko. That's not how you know. I don't know.
Sure.
Taco. Maybe it's just taco. In this, and so Mobcraft co-founder Henry Schwartz is a Colorado native, so that's part of the appeal of Denver here. And obviously, big time brewing city, they're beer city too. There's probably about 300 breweries that they'll be joining there. But there's one less because it is in the former Liberati Brewery. It's a little bit northwest of downtown, about a half mile west of Coors Field. And it's a 7-barrel brew house. And this place has a capacity. I mean, this is the brewery, taproom, and the taco place has a capacity of about 600 patrons. So that is not small.
Yeah.
And that's expected to open later this year yet. So this has already been underway, renovations underway, and obviously that's an existing brew system. So in Waterford, that's going to be in a former fire station on the Fox River. And then they're going to put in a 3.5-barrel brewing system and build out a kitchen within like an expanded version of the food menu that they have in the Milwaukee tap room. Whoop. There we go. I love these lamps that you touch them and they turn on in the middle of the night. Really, really great. One of the partners here, Rick Beck, has deep roots in Wisconsin brewing and has been trying to open a brewery of his own for a while. He's a descendant of the John Beck Brewery, which operated, I've not heard of John Beck Brewery. It operated in Waterford from the mid 19th century, like Civil War time, until 1890. So it's not like you've got some John Beck old ale sitting in your cellar up here.
Didn't even make it to Prohibition. Damn.
Target opening for this one is spring 2022, which sounds like it's in like 100 years, but that's actually next year.
Yeah, that's real soon.
Yeah.
A couple months away.
2022. I don't know. That sounds like Jetsons type shit.
Right.
Right. And then last but not least, but it is least because it's Illinois, is Woodstock, where the plan is to have another 3.5-barrel system in another historic. Well, the Waterford one's not historic; it's just like a fire station. But this is in a historic building in a former courthouse complex in like the Woodstock Town Square. Sounds like a pretty cool building. There will be some customer seating like in the original jail cells. Like you can, I don't know if that's your kind of thing. And the partner here is an existing restaurant called the Public House, which is in the same complex. And I mean, 3-4 tap rooms is not enough. That's not even the end of it. In like longer range, Mobcraft has plans to open locations in Madison, which is where they started back in, what would that have been, like 2013 maybe?
It was later than that.
Later than that?
They might have started then, but they didn't move for a while. Yeah,
well, they opened the Milwaukee one was, I think, 2016. But I would say 2012, 2013 was when they started in Madison over at House of Brews. Yeah. So Madison, Chicago, and the Fox Valley. So as Tyler Durden would say, they're setting up franchises.
That's aggressive.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, and there's Bobby's story gets into the financing mechanism for this. They've got some kind of like crowd funding platform that they're doing a campaign on, and they've got a long ways to go on that. But these things are moving forward, so I'm assuming that that's not the only the only funding mechanism for all these things.
Because the crowdsourcing is a pretty big part of their business model.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. Right. And if you think about like how this makes sense for them, more people exposed to this crowdsourcing idea means more ideas and potentially like more interesting beers. They could do, I mean, who knows? But the way that these different tap rooms could, kind of exchange beers and it could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
2012.
Thanks, Greg.
2012.
That's me. I'm a Baron.
And then they were on Shark Tank, I think 2 years after that.
Yeah.
If I remember.
That's one of my favorite things I've ever written was watching that show and talking to Henry about it. And I mean, Mobcraft has a lot of interesting things to write about, a lot, because they're just like so unique and unusual things happen to them because of that, I guess.
Right.
Just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, Greg.
Right. We'll move along. So outside of Mobcraft, we've got some award news.
Yeah. It was this was a little fresher last week, but this is the big one. GABF, the great festival in Denver, callback, was virtual only for the second year in a row, but the big beer competition, probably the most esteemed one in the world, went on as usual. And this year, Wisconsin had 2 medalists. Stubborn Brothers Brewery in Shawano won gold for an American wheat ale called Sweet Peel, which is brewed with orange peel. And Stevens Point Brewery in Stevens Point took bronze in the pumpkin ale category for whole hog pumpkin ale. Whole hog pumpkin ale is a perennial winner in this category. It won gold in 2019, silver in 2018, bronze in 2014, gold in 2012, which I believe was the year that it was introduced, or very, very close to that. So yeah, it's got a lot of hardware on that one, and it is good. I mean, like if you're into pumpkin ales, that's probably the best one of the best ones out there. You know, like kind of like in the normal vein, like like barrel pumpkin one is like, ooh, that's balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's as far as like kind of straightforward. Yeah,
it is good.
So, okay, so Stubborn Brothers though, right? Like I have to admit that I had not heard of this brewery or even heard about this brewery before. Anybody else? Like, what is that? No.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
So I looked into it, and it is really, really cool. This brewery is located in the century-old former Crescent Theater in downtown Shawano, which is a small city northwest of Green Bay. My old stomping grounds. I knew about Shawano. I just didn't know about this brewery. And brothers Eric and Aaron Gilling spent 3.5 years restoring all the historical details and like kind of converting it into a brewery and an event space. There's like a really nice looking event space upstairs. And get this, the project was completed in March 2020.
Ooh,
good timing.
Great timing.
Of course. So this is a pretty sweet win for them. And they had a great Facebook post about it. That kind of, I thought, summed up nicely the, what this means to them. Like, that's a constant debate about like, what does this really matter? But here we are talking about Stubborn Brothers. And here's what they said on this Facebook post. Excuse me, I've had a beer. Most people don't believe we own the place and don't believe, these are pretty young guys. Oh yeah, okay, we get to that. Most people don't believe we own the place and don't believe us that 2 young men from Marion, Wisconsin, at 26 and 28, took the biggest gamble of their lives and spent 3.5 years building this to pursue their passion, pouring so much into this and just grinding every single day. I can't tell you how many people have asked and still ask if we are crazy. The answer is clearly yes, we are, but that's beside the point. The point is support young entrepreneurs, believe in people who put in the work, and make sure you don't place doubt in their heart. That's pretty cool. Okay, back to the GABF for a second. Only 2 medals for Wisconsin, guys. Is that like disappointing to you?
I mean, a little, but how many people actually entered from Wisconsin?
Yeah,
I imagine it was still kind of a not as big of a GABF as it normally is.
Yeah, it's hard to know. That's never released,
right.
How many entries there were. Well, the number of entries there were, but you don't know who entered, where they're from, any of that.
Right.
So,
right.
And it has been a tough couple of years for breweries, so it's easy to imagine that breweries might cut back on this line item to kind of,
Yep.
bake beer and sell it, but even 2 is not totally out of line. Like last year Wisconsin brewers took home 5 medals, and there were 7 in 2019, but this has been up and down a lot over the years. There were just 2 Wisconsin medals in 2017 and only 3 in 2016. So, whatever. I don't, it's, hey, puppers, what you got there?
That's Scotch photobombing.
Scotch, okay. It's hard to kind of, small sample size. I think we kind of just write it up to that. Speaking of beer awards, we got one other thing real quick. The winners from last month's IPA Fest at Third Space Brewing, which you guys mentioned last month. Brewer's Choice, selected by a panel of industry folks and a few media folks, went to Raised Grains Lonesome Citra IPA, and the People's Choice was Fuja Pineapple IPA from Faclandia in St. Francis, which we talked about last summer, I think.
Yeah.
When we opened.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little one.
Yeah.
Put that one on your radar if you're coming to Milwaukee or in Milwaukee. Yeah.
All right. So we've got another pretty big story. We've got big stories all over this month.
There's a lot of news this month.
Yeah, a lot of news. We got a big story right here in Wisconsin, of course, from a previous guest on Badger Beer Hour even.
Yeah, this is almost a year ago now that we had Alex Wenzel and Eric Henzel.
Man, it was that long ago, huh?
On from Lion's Tail Brewing in Neenah. And earlier this month, news broke that they are planning a new brewery in my neck of the woods, Wauwatosa. This is like, okay. Anyway, this has yet to be actually. This just last week. Update here was approved. Got a pretty critical approval from the city. It still has to be approved by the city council, but I think it was a unanimous approval from the plan commission, which they're the ones that worry about like neighborhoods or like neighbors and stuff. And that would, I think that would be the concern here. Anyway, we're getting ahead of it ourselves here. The plan is a brewery and tap room that would make about anywhere from like 1,000 to 2,500 barrels a year. And right now they're basically maxed out at about 100 barrels, or check that, 800 barrels in at their downtown Neenah. This property is a former store that has like a cool open kind of semi-outdoor building, like where they had all the plants and like you'd get your flowers and stuff there. So it's open, but it has like this kind of like
awning type
pergola almost over it.
Yeah.
And then there's like a enclosed kind of register area. All that seems like awesome for like beer garden. As well as, and then like across this little driveway is like the standard building that was like a pet store and garden store, and that would be where the brewery is. So, this is like pretty interesting area. There's a pretty robust brewing scene developing on North Avenue, all the way from the city. So there's Stockhouse Brewing. The Fermentorium tap room, our friends at Venture Brewing are just over the city line in Milwaukee, and then like Ray's Growler Gallery is another friend of show, is a few blocks the other way. Draft and Vessel, their Tosa Village tap room is not far off this little line, and I mean that's a pretty nice day if you want to come visit beautiful Wauwatosa. So there you go.
We'll be there.
Yeah,
you will.
We'll make a field trip out of it.
You have my number, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know how to get in touch with you. But no, you were describing the architectural plans, and having seen, they posted them on their Facebook page, but having seen them, like it looks like it's going to be a really special place.
It does.
When this place was open this spring, we bought a bunch of mulch and stuff there, and I was like, but they had their store closing signs out already, and I was like, ooh, that'll be interesting. And I just assumed that it was going to be like torn down and they build an apartment building there. But it never occurred to me that in my wildest dreams that it would be a brewery. But as soon as I saw that, I'm like, that is perfect.
Yeah.
It's not. Nice job, Alex.
So unfortunately, we always have to have some sort of other bad news. So the last story this month, we've got some unfortunate news.
Yeah, we got to end on a sour note, right?
Yeah, right.
We actually had a different story in here, but we had to swap it out. So, anyway, so Racine Beer Company is closing on September 30th. That's the week from tonight, I guess. Angie and Andy Molina opened this brewery in 2018, and toward the end of last month posted a heartfelt letter about the closing. I'll just quote from here: "We, as many other small businesses, never fully recovered from the catastrophic results of COVID-19. Despite the changes they made, including like expansion of their outdoor beer garden in Waterford." Is that the same Waterford? I'm just
apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, this broke. Yeah, that's Waterford. Okay. Wow, circle of life here. despite that, those changes, it just isn't enough to be sustainable and realistic for our family. Racine beer was very small. They made about 135 barrels last year. Obviously a community tap room, not doing, cans and that sort of thing. So
Right.
heart goes out to the Molinas.
For sure.
Well, bad news, but even though we're at the end of the news, we've got a great interview coming up, right?
That's right.
That's right.
All right. I am thrilled to introduce this month's guest. He is Anello Mollica from Central Waters Brewing, co-founder and general. Did I screw it up?
You're fine.
Dang it. All right. Central Waters Brewing. If you know anything about the Wisconsin beer industry or the Wisconsin beer scene, you probably know about Central Waters. So, a brewery that needs no introduction. Anello, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
And thanks for your flexibility also in making this happen instead of last week. So
no problem.
Appreciate it.
Anything for you, Draws. You know.
Oh, well.
Oh,
Right.
you're Amherst.
Oh, might have to. Hey, speaking of, you got any cases of that toppling waters laying around there?
What? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Bad connection.
So we've talked about what we're going to talk about mostly tonight in a previous episode. But can you give us kind of an overview of what Central Waters Milwaukee is?
Central Waters Milwaukee specifically, huh? You want like the whole story, like how we got to where we are right now this year, type of thing?
Seems kind of told, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was told. Yeah.
Okay.
Told, yeah. So what we're shooting for here with this place, I'll give you sort of our vision quick here. It's an amazing opportunity. We're humbled to have been offered that, and the way that we're envisioning this, we're kind of assembling what is turning out to be just a really stellar team down there with an incredible GM and an incredible brewer. And so we just want this really awesome space with really good food. All the beers that we're producing there are going to be Milwaukee exclusive. So that place isn't going to be making any beers that Amherst is making. It's going to be its own thing. And so we're going to just kind of diversify our portfolio, have the flexibility to brew some things down there that we don't have the room for up in Amherst. And we're currently just in the process of trying to re-envision what that space is going to look like to make it a Central Waters facility. You know?
Mm-hmm. And this facility that you mentioned is, I mean, you said it was a really cool space, but that kind of undersells it by about tenfold. This is the former Pabst Milwaukee, but that's like Pab. It was Pabst Milwaukee for like 3 years or something, 4 years, something.
Yeah. I think they started in like 2017. I want to say. Yeah.
And then before that, this was a Methodist. I think it was Methodist church on the grounds of the Pabst Brewing complex. So it's this little church, and it looks like a church with the whole thing right next to all these big buildings that are like cranking out oceans of beer. So
it was actually only a church until 1890. So Frederick Pabst bought the church in 1890 because the German Methodists were like teetotalers, right? Like they were anti-alcohol. And so as like the Pabst brewery grew, Frederick Pabst bought him, moved him 2 miles away, took the steeple off the building and replaced it with the castle tower that matches all the other architecture you see on those Pabst buildings. And so then it operated from that point on the second floor, which is where our tap room is and where the kitchen space is. That operated as like a Pabst training facility. And the bottom floor, which is where the brewery is now, was actually a German restaurant called the Forst Keller that ran from like 1890s until all the way up until the 1970s.
Okay. So there's a little bit of history in this place. And
I just got home today. I've been down there since Sunday.
Okay.
Facelifting the joint. I've been knee deep in paint for like 3 days, and with like Ryder Cup, I had a hard time getting a hotel room in Milwaukee for 4 nights. Right, and I'm like, I'm a camping guy, right? I'll just bring my camping gear and I'll sleep in there. But then I was like, there is no way that place is not haunted. There's no way it's not haunted, right? It's like a German Methodist, like anti-alcohol folks. I'm a brewery owner. Like, no, absolutely, nope, not gonna do it.
Yeah. Okay. That seems like a good move there. Okay. So where is this all at? I mean, last time we talked was back in summer when this all was coming out, and you said it'd be opening this fall. I'm wearing a flannel. We all got hoodies on. Equinox was this week. So do you have an opening date yet, or kind of where are we at in progress?
This close.
Yeah.
This close to the opening date. I think you'll see us be able to announce that. I'm hoping very early next week. What I can say is that this week was a huge accomplishment. We got a lot of the major projects off of our table. Have you seen the space before? Have you been in the Pabst?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that just don't fit the Central Waters MO. The bar, things like the way it looks is just doesn't really fit us. So we need to kind of redo that, and it's been a struggle with getting like contractors or anybody to do what we want it to do. So we're going to end up doing it ourselves. And then we also still deal with like state, city, federal, historical society issues of what we can change and what we can't change because of the historical nature of that property. I'll say this. It is going to be in the month of October. We haven't said that publicly really yet, but it's going to be the month of October. So we're really, really close.
Okay, awesome. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You alluded in the open to this team, and I think that, I mean, there are two pretty prominent people that I think deserve to be named and discussed a little bit here. You mentioned the brewer and the general manager. Can you talk about who they are?
Absolutely. So by fortuitous circumstances, and if I start to like be long-winded, just like cut me short because I'm
not going to cut you short,
for a
but
long time. So
yeah,
the GM position is a good one. So as happens in the beer and wholesaler world, if a high-profile figure from a high-profile account leaves, my wholesaler will usually call and say, "Hey, just so you know, so-and-so is not with this place anymore." So I roll into a Monday morning, and we know like Wednesday or so of that week, we're going to post the job opening for the GM. And I get a call from Beechwood, who's my wholesaler, saying, "Hey, just so you know, Eric isn't with Draft and Vessel any longer." And I was like, I thought he owned it. Like I think everybody thought Eric owned that place, right? Because he was the face of Draft and Vessel,
yeah,
which is still, it's an amazing place. Like the ownership and Eric at the time did a really great job of, building that place into what it is today. And so
just for everybody who doesn't know, Draft and Vessel is a pretty small outfit, beer bar and kind of like to-go package combination in it's in Shorewood, I think technically.
Just first place is in Shorewood, yeah.
And then they've got they've got a couple places that have opened since then, including down in the Tosa Village, which we just mentioned. So anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so Eric applied for the job, and I was ecstatic to see that.
And you're like this?
We pulled him in right away. I was like, let's do this. So we got Eric on board, who's just an amazing individual with a lot of skills and just, knows how to run a place. He's a big part of the Milwaukee beer fabric already. And so we're just really pleased to have him to, deepen that beer fabric along with Central Waters. And then, brewers, like we had a lot of resumes come in. It was heartening to see all the people that wanted to come and work for us at that spot. It is a little bit of a dream job for a brewer, So ultimately, we ended up hiring Brendan. So Brendan was formerly with Good City, so he came over from Good City to us. He's extremely knowledgeable about all things beer. Probably, of all the brewers his age that I've spoken with, he's got some of the most technical knowledge of anybody that I've ever spoken with. And his plan for the beers that he's looking to make are exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah. And this is that brewery is a pretty, as I recall, that was a pretty much top of the line, but small, but top of the line brewery that Pabst installed there in
it's an awesome brewery.
Just a few years ago. Yeah.
It's an awesome brewery. mean,
And how big is that? Is it 7.5?
too big. Yeah, it's a 10-barrel system.
10 barrel. Okay.
Yeah, so that's like many people have said there's like a 15-pound ham and a 10-pound can in here. Like they packed that little space with 10-barrel fermenters and 20-barrel fermenters and a 10-barrel system, which is it's great. It's a really, really nice system. We've actually already removed about half of the fermentation space from there. So we ripped out 5 fermenters because it's just that space didn't need 7,000 barrels capacity, and that's pretty close to what was in there. It's not going to do 7,000 barrels out of that space, man. It's not going to happen. So what that did is it made room for us to put in a canning line. So we have that installed. We're working on getting it running. We did our first booze this week.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what is that? What's the vision for how this works with Amherst and kind of, the kind of beers that you're going to be making there? Are they going to be its own thing? Or, I know you already said that these are going to be exclusive Milwaukee, but kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the idea there is with the canning line, we'll do 16-ounce 4-packs. That is a package that Central Waters Amherst does not produce, right? We do 6-pack 12-ounce can exclusively there. And so this will be our 16-ounce avenue. We will produce beers. Some of them will do like weekend can drops, like this weekend dropping this beer, whatever it might be. The nice thing about the state of Wisconsin, we can then, we can transfer beers between breweries.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to take some of that batch, move it to Amherst, provide them for sale in Amherst, provide them for sale in Milwaukee. And then if there's desire, some of that draft could see distribution out of the Amherst place. So we've already got people from Stevens Point, Minocqua, saying like we'd love to carry some of the beers that you're making down there. So in terms of what the beer mix is going to be, that's why I mentioned, it's kind of like the dream job for a lot of brewers is, what happens in any brewery. Breweries are factories at the end of the day, right? So we have a lot of fun with what we're doing, but you end up making the same beer over and over again, right? Like our brewers in Amherst make a lot of mud puppy, they make a lot of honey blonde. Whereas here, all of those rules are off. There's really only 2 things that Paul and I have really directed Brendan with, and that was the first thing that I said is we need to have a light lager, something like an homage to Pabst, the building we're in, the district we're in, the grounds we're on. We have to have something like that, So that's the first beers Brendan brewed this week. The first 2 beers were our light lager, and he did the system's really nice, and he's such a geek about stuff like that. He did some really cool technical stuff on that system, like decoction mashing and really, really getting into it. So I was talking to him this morning, and we're trying to think, all right, is a beer like this going to be ready for our opening? And he's like, no, I don't think so, man. I would like to see this go 6 to 8 weeks lagering time. And I'm like, okay, you're a brewery, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, let's do it right.
Bring back some of those fermenters, maybe.
Yeah, right. And then so he did the second brew today that we haven't even publicly mentioned what the beers were yet. So here's your breaking news. So we did the light lager first today. He brewed the first, it's going to be a hazy IPA, one of the first ones of those, because that will be ready. This will help you too in terms of if you want to do the math. That one should be ready for the grand opening.
Okay, brewed today.
Should be ready. We'll see. So
10 to 14 days fermentation time.
Yeah. So we're gonna be we're gonna have a ton of beer on tap because we can move the beer from Amherst down.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll have all the favorites from Amherst, barrel aged beers, the mud puppies, the riffs, HHGs, all that.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you see the audience question on the thing? There you go.
A couple come in here. Yeah. Any special releases you have planned for the opening? That's kind of what we're getting at. We don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here. We have to open at some point here. You know what I mean? We're paying for the space. We need to open. So we're hoping to have some beers ready to go, Milwaukee brew beers for the opening. That's definitely the desire. It's just gonna keep happening after we open, So you're just gonna have to really stay tuned, watch us on social media to see what the upcoming beers are, and we'll just keep on announcing them and keep on cranking them out.
Gotcha. I'm guessing that folks will be happy to show up and drink Cash and Sunset or brandy barrel barley wine.
Yeah. Trust me, for the grand opening down there, we're going to be digging deep into our cellars. There's going to be some really awesome stuff on tap.
Yeah.
For sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is one I hear a lot. Headless Heron. Any chance that's coming
Dude,
back?
I hear that all the time, and that's probably one of our most requested beers to bring back. Look, I'm not a big pumpkin beer guy, right? But as they went, that was really good.
It was good, yeah.
The bourbon barrel aged pumpkin thing really worked. I'll never say never about anything. I think it would be really, really fun to bring that back. The base for that one is a style that we're currently not producing. It was easy to do before because we were always making Slanja, which was our Scotch ale.
Scotch ale, yeah.
So we were taking our Scotch ale and putting it into bourbon barrels, and then incorporating the pumpkin and the spices and everything. So because we don't make that style anymore, we have to specifically do it. But now that we have
10 barrels
to work off of,
10 barrels.
I wish that place had space for like barrel aging. There is no space in there to age anything. Like it's
okay.
There.
Because there's no like belfry or anything, right? Like it's that ceiling is open to the all the way to the.
You can get up there.
Yeah,
you can get up there. Like there's a ladder. I went halfway up it this morning, and like a couple of my crew have been all the way to the top.
That sounds like a story.
I'm not afraid of heights, but like it's a ladder. It's like you go up one ladder, you get into the castle tower, and then you got to kind of turn around, go up another ladder, you squeeze under a pipe, and when you're at the very top to get out onto the rooftop, it's like a wooden steps that are leaning out over the 3-story drop that you can see down through, and I'm pretty sure they're original. And it's just kind of like,
I don't
know, man.
I don't think I'm doing that.
The nice thing is though, we can brew beers down there. We can transport them. We can bring empty oaks down there and fill them, put them into our trailer, and bring them back and age them in Amherst. So
right.
Do barrel aging on that if Brendan wants to. We can do. We've got the farm program with all the wild sours that's still been developing, going on now for a little over a year, so we can put stuff into there from him. And Brendan's got a very good long history with working in sour programs as well. So I think you'll see a lot of diverse, fun stuff from us down there. Things, like I said, things we're not doing anywhere else.
Yeah, pretty exciting. Like one of the things that I think a lot of people are interested in is how, Central Waters events are like really, I think, pretty core to the identity of the brewery. And if anybody's ever been if you haven't been to the anniversary fest or the anniversary party in January, that's a pretty awesome event. And big, it's not like an intimate gathering. It ends up being intimate, but in a different way. So
3,000 people back to no building.
I guess is there going to be? Will there be like satellite locations for? I'm thinking also like River Run, which is obviously a really different kind of thing, but events that kind of parallel in Milwaukee as well.
Will we be doing events down there? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Well, I guess will some of the events that Central Waters has become known for also be happening, in tandem with Amherst? Yeah.
We've been asked that before because there's a couple sides to that coin. Sure. I think we would get a lot more traction from those more southern markets if we kind of also did it down there at the same time. We might lose something out of the Amherst place as a result, but I think for now the jury's still out on that. We want to see. We don't know what to expect with this place. We don't know what kind of traffic flow we're going to see. We don't know how many people are going to be coming in, how this is going to play out. So I think once we get our feet under us and we see how this place is operating, then we can make some of those calls. At the moment, we don't have any plans to say okay, the next anniversary party, It's going to be held, assuming we can even have an indoor anniversary party. We don't really know about that.
Sure.
Who knows when that's going to be able to happen again.
Right.
But do we make bottle pickup available at each location? We really don't know yet.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but in terms of events, there'll be plenty of events at that spot. One of the really cool things about where that is, so it's on like the corner of like Juneau and 11th. And when you turn off of Juneau onto 11th South, which is right next to the brewery, there's an outdoor beer garden there. And that's a dead end street. Like it just ends right there, and there's nothing there. So the city of Milwaukee is perfectly happy to allow us to block off that block basically anytime we'd like.
Block party.
Block party. We can just open the gates, and those really cool iron gates are actually like the original gates to the Pabst Brewery that were on Juneau Avenue, and they moved them there so we can swing open those 150, 160-year-old gates and bleed the taproom out into the street. So it's gonna be pretty fun.
Yeah, and like circling back to that history, I mean, that is a huge part of a big part of the appeal of this location for you, right? I mean, and not just like, I mean, certainly the beer history and all that, but also you have some Pabst history.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's a beer I grew up on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really special thing for me because it's my hometown. I was born and raised in that city. I only left there to come to Stevens Point for college, which is where Paul and I became buddies and started homebrewing together and stayed here, right? But Milwaukee is where I'm born and bred, and not like I'm from Milwaukee. Where? Brookfield? No, you're not from Milwaukee, man. Like I'm like from the city.
Easy. Whoa, no, we got a lot of viewers. I think, in Brookfield.
They all know it's true.
I don't
know. If you're watching, it's true. Yeah, exactly.
It just hits different.
Yeah, it's different. So, but it's fun for me to bring it back there. And Pabst was the beer that my dad drank, my uncles drank. It's the only beer, and like I'll never forget as a kid, my dad would say I got to pour him a beer, so I'd have to go to the fridge to get a beer, and he would tell me I could drink the foam because he didn't want foamy beer. So I would because he would tell my mom, I remember him saying, "Oh, there's no alcohol in foam," right? That's fantastic. So
that's science. You can look it up. Look it up on the internet now.
Yeah, Google it. Yeah, just like hard pours into the glass, big heads, and sipping down all the foam. I loved it. So
awesome.
Pretty cool to bring that full circle.
All right. Well, I don't want to let you go without at least one like kind of beer question. So, kind of just real quickly, what's coming up for Central Waters? Maybe anything in the dark and barrel aged vein would be. You got any hot tips here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've got something that nobody knows is coming up yet. So, obviously, for our barrel age program, we do a drop every 2 months with that one. So we get the 4-packs every other month. Essentially, something new comes out. The next one is going to be Burn Barrel Stout. That's every November. That's like our core flagship. And then as we move into 2022. We like to switch a lot of that stuff up. So what we're looking at for the month of January, yet to be perfectly named beer, but we're looking at like a 7-layer bar sort of barrel aged beer. So think chocolate, caramel, coconut, all that fun stuff. So
Greg's losing his mind in the chat.
That's good. So yeah, that's gonna be a fun one.
Do you, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking that like, Central Waters barrel aged beers were very kind of pure or something for a while, and I don't know. Maybe that's not really true. I mean, like there was always Cherry Stout. Peruvian Morning was an early one. Cassian came out later, and that was like really on the early wave of like vanilla as an adjunct in barrel aging. I mean,
I think you're totally right there. I think that we do get kind of cut into a fabric of being a pure brewer like that, which is fine by me. I don't really pay too much attention to that stuff, but I think you're right that we do. I think it's kind of funny because I think there's a lot of things we've done over the years. I think people are just, it's kind of the bane of being 23 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the new kid on the block is the one doing the cutting edge stuff. And like, we were that kid at one point, right?
Yeah.
Only back then, when we started putting beer into barrels in 2001, when like, you know, some of the brewers doing that now were, you know, 6, like, you know, like, you know,
Nice
nobody was
flex.
around.
Nice
to see
flex,
that.
Anello. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point of like every 2 months is a great one, because I mean, these used to be quarterly at best. I mean,
It's
and then
funny,
I mean, it was for, I mean, even going back, it was, you know, less than that. So I mean, the fact that these are like these, you know, I think the important thing for like purists, or I mean, it's interesting to think about like barrel aged beer purists, but whatever. But you know, that this is not displacing, you know, more traditional, like straightforward beers that are, you know, that, I don't know, live and let live. You know, like let's
Yeah, right. And I mean, you know, so like putting beer into barrels was a pretty, you know, back then we didn't know anybody that was doing that. As it turns out, Founders and Goose was doing it back then, but we didn't know that because we couldn't get Founders and Goose here, right? And then like, you know, we won our first gold medal for a bourbon cherry stout. That was in 2006. And then you're right, putting in proving and like Hessing, and you know, like, dude, it's hard to stay on top of that stuff.
Yeah,
that's the hardest part here. Is, I mean, everybody's kind of looking for like, all right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's definitely one way to like think about your business model, is trying to be the first to do something next. Whereas ours has been like, we'd like to play on that stuff. We'd like to be a trendsetter, obviously. But also like as a business person, you play the long game. Like, you know, it's fun to make that stuff, but it doesn't sell more than Mud Puppy Porter. It doesn't sell more than Honey Blonde, which is a huge seller for us. Like, those are the staples. Those are the beers that keep you as a brewery. And I think it's dangerous for us, speaking for myself, it's dangerous for Central Waters to like get lost in the whole try to keep doing something that's going to be the next big thing, because then you lose sight of what your core is and the things that the majority of people are spending their hard-earned money on. I think the minority of the beer drinkers who are getting all these really fun, awesome beers, they just also happen to be the most vocal and the most visible. But the majority of the beer that's sold is not that by a long shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
know? When I learned that Mud Puppy was your, like, by a pretty wide margin bestseller, I was like, huh. I'm like, yeah, that's a good beer, but I don't think of it as, you know, I mean, like the brain space that it occupies as far as like, you know, I mean, I'm not a normal beer consumer, but that was surprising to me. And, you know, certainly like people, like probably a lot of people watching this show are thinking about, oh yeah, what's the next barrel aged beer? And we think about that as such a core identity of Central Waters. And I think I don't think you would disagree with that. But,
not at all. It's a huge part.
But it is not as big of a deal to the business probably as we think it is.
It is still. I mean, it's a big part of what it's what puts us on the beer map, right? Like, But
right.
Puppy has been the best selling beer for us since the day we opened the doors, and it continues to be today.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we're already into Badger Beer hour plus. So we're 2 segments in. So, Anello, thank you for coming on and being as forthright and engaging as you were. I am enjoying, I think, the same beer that you are right now, just by chance.
Oh, buddy. Yes.
Look at that. Not even planned. How about that? Anello, thanks for coming on. We'll stay in touch, and looking forward to that opening in 2-ish weeks. Maybe.
We'll see.
Okay.
Soon,
Take it
buddy. You'll be there. All right. Cheers.
Pabst Brewing Company out here in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Give you a little 360 view here. Greenery. We'll check that out in a second there. I think that's where they have their brewery merch. That looks like the residents here. Because this is a farm, y'all. I mean, this is as farmy as farm can get. Venture Brewing Company, y'all. About time I made it here. Looking forward to this very, very much. So let me preface all this by saying I was supposed to hit the road and go to Barrel and Flow, which is the only black brewery. I'm sorry, the only black brewer beer festival. It was in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
I came down with some ailments, and I ultimately, after all those videos were shown, I ended up spending a couple days in the hospital. I'm doing better now. Still a little bit of a road of recovery I have to work on here, but I went on one last trip. I couldn't go to Pittsburgh, so I was like, I'm just gonna go to a couple breweries and a couple places I didn't go. So the video was horrifying, partially because I'm a horrifying videographer, but also because I was not feeling well at all. So Landon cleaned all that up and made us a wonderful video of the places that I was able to visit and take videos of. So I'm just going to really run through here some of the places that I went to, and hopefully y'all can get an idea about how cool they were. First of all, the first one that we showed was Dusterbox, which is Elkhorn, Wisconsin. It is a destination farmhouse brewery. It doesn't get any more farmhouse. I mean, maybe Dave's Farm. You know what I mean?
Well, who knows? I mean, the future Dave's Farm, who knows what that's going to be like, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this place had big barns. I mean, they had a stage. They had engaging people. They had everything was laid out nice. I said before in the preview, when we were talking beforehand, is that if you ever wanted to like get married at a destination brewery, that is the place. It has everything you need. Again, engaging people. What I really liked, Landon, was that I wish I would have took a picture of it. Is that the diversity of styles. They had 3 IPAs and the rest were just all over the place. I thought I saw a Hell's, a Porter. I mean, it was just really nice. The beers were solid. It's just in the middle of nowhere. But if you're ever around Elkhorn, down in between, Elkhorn's like in between. It's in a weird place. It's between Madison, Beloit, Racine, and Milwaukee. It's almost kind of in between those four, almost like directly in between those four. Right off the highway, about 20 minutes off the highway, maybe 15. Fantastic place. I can't say enough about it. Venture Brewing. Our friends Venture were on here. What I like about Venture is the mix between coffee and beer. I rode up there at 11 o'clock, and it was a coffee. It was just coffee. There were people in there. It was like a coffee shop.
Right. Right.
And just how they make that transition between coffee and beer is fantastic. The barista there was fun. And I saw Simon and Rob, and we are working on a collaboration beer that we will have more information about later down the road. But we're working on a collaboration charity beer, which I'm really excited about, but I don't have time to talk about. But Venture Brewing, Chris Strasser could tell us where. Chris, where exactly is Venture in Milwaukee?
It is on the 5500 block of North Avenue, which is in the Washington Heights neighborhood, kind of on the outskirts of the city toward Tosa.
Right. Yeah, fantastic place. Bye, Chris. So then, so Venture Brewing, fantastic spot. I would suspect there's a lot of places that you could walk to around there too. But I went to Venture Brewing, then I jumped over to Duster Box. So that was a fantastic Venture Brewing. I can't say enough about them. Y'all probably know about them too. And nice, wonderful glass too. Great, I love it.
Yeah.
So then, two more places. Number one, Central Waters. I ended up going to Central Waters, and I was there at like 9 a.m. They have a nice walk up. If you get there really early, you can just get there. A nice walk up window there. You can buy all their beers. You can drink beer. It's fast. It's quick. It's just great. Love Central Waters. They're fantastic. We already talked about them, and we had a whole bunch of drops before.
Oh man,
that was fantastic.
So many.
So last and certainly not least, and I was really, really skeptical of this place. Walking up, I was skeptical when I wanted to go there, was Ringling Brothers in Baraboo. I'm like, Ringling Brothers, you're a circus. You're no beer place. What is going on? So you walk in and you saw they had an organ there. Their brewing equipment is just like right out in the open. They were literally brewing there when I was there. So you had the brewing smell. It's fantastic. They have food. But what I liked about their Landing was diversity of styles. They only had 8 beers, but only 2 of them were IPAs, and 3 of them were lagers. They have their old, they have like an old throwback lager, but the space is nice. Landon, I know you got a family. I got a family. Great family spot, Landon. Great.
Nice.
You can have food. You can have your family in there. There's a whole bunch of different things going on there that keeps your family, interested.
Yeah.
It's not just I mean, listen, man. We're brewery guys, so we can take our families almost to any brewery.
And I have,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, so have I. But at the same time, though, place is really more geared towards the family, obviously with the circus element. But I mean, it really felt homey there, and I really liked it. And they had an outdoor place. I didn't see it, but the beer was on point. They have food, everything. If y'all are ever in Baraboo, you have to hit Ringling Brothers Circus. Don't just think it's a circus and be like, oh man, they don't even. No. The beers are good.
The one thing I will make a point about, so that video where the organ's playing. So if there's any video guys watching that, I took that audio and you were back. Like you were back quite a ways when you shot that.
Yeah.
That damn thing is so loud that I took that down like 10 dB and it was still that loud on the video.
It was pretty obnoxiously loud, yeah. It was. But it was fun, and it added to the whole element of everything. Yeah, it was fun. I'm telling you, it's a place. I went to Tumble Rock too. Tumble Rock was another little bit of a clip. I didn't get many clips there. Tumble Rock is they have a female brewer. They're like 6 minutes away from Ringling. I would suggest you go there too.
Sure.
Tumble Rock was great. The beer was great, and I had lunch. It was great. But Ringling Brothers really, really, really to me impressed me again, simply because I went in with the, like, what is this? Like, this is a circus. Like, come on. But the beer was, and roasty porter too.
Oh, and, nice.
Roasty porter. Fantastic. So I can't say enough. I just want, there are other ones that I went to too. I went on Hop House, the new Hop House. Fantastic. Nice. I got this wonderful yard work crushable IPA there. So I really had a good time, but I was really, really pressed, and I was really, really looking back now and been in the hospital for 3 days. I was really sick, but I was like, you know what? It's not going to stop me from having at least going out and seeing what's going on out there and going to new places. So I want to thank you for doing that video. but I also have to say that it was a really, really good time. And if you ever at any of those spots, again, definitely should hit up all the spots that I said. If you're anywhere around them, especially Ringling Brothers, man, I was blown away by how fun and family friendly it was, and how much of a good time I had. So it was great.
Yeah,
it was great. So we have to move on. I could sit here and talk hours about this.
Yeah.
I had a really good time. It was great. It wasn't barrel and flow, but it did, it actually did what I did. And again, ultimately, I didn't want to drive all the way to Pittsburgh and be so far away if I knew that something might have happened or I might end up in the hospital, which I ended up in the hospital. So it all worked out pretty well. I'm doing well, and we should be back on schedule for Badger Beer Hour next in October the 20th. But before that, we're gonna have to talk about some beer events. So we'll see you. So yeah, we're gonna start this new segment on Badger Beer Hour called Beer Events. That's our beer PSA transition. But beer events is something that when we started Badger Beer Hour, not only was Andy not around, but COVID was around even worse than it is now. So there were no beer events. So we couldn't really talk about what was going on at breweries and the events that y'all should see, because there was nothing going on. So now that
I like how Chris is in the chat going, I was around, I just wasn't here on the show.
Yes. Andy was around, right?
Yeah.
He was.
I was in the audience somewhere, probably, or
you weren't taproom traveling. How about that? Because no one was doing shit.
Well, there's that too.
But so Andy, you are I call you our resident event
not an expert.
person.
Don't call me an expert.
Not
you
yet.
Just settled me with this job. So like a kid showing up for his book report last minute. I'm just showing up and hoping that like the episode was going to finish and I could just like push it off until next month.
I like expert because it makes you sound smart.
All right. Well,
and you are smart, so you should sound that way. But with that said, we have a whole bunch of events going on. Especially at the end of the fall. Yeah. So do you want to jump off on any of them and we can get through them real quick here?
Just looking at our list here, it looks like the first thing we have is Third Space Brewing is having their 5th year anniversary party this weekend.
Yes.
So that looks like it's a lot of fun. They're going to have food trucks, a couple special breweries or special beer releases, I should say.
Yep. And I'm sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
My bad. No, finish and then I'll finish.
No, I was just going to say, they have an interesting thing called a zero waste party. So I'm assuming that's something about sustainability or like being green, something along those lines. So very much on brand for them.
Yep, and I know the Beer Baron has something he wants to talk about, so we're going to bring him on real quick.
I got one for this. So the one of there's 2 special beers that they brewed for this this party. One is it's an IPA called Rock the Green, and Rock the Green is the sustainability nonprofit that they're partnering with for this event, and they're doing all that zero waste thing and recycling and all that stuff. But also the other beer that they're making is, get this is a 3-year Solera triple barrel. I guess it's like a barley wine, kind of like an old ale. And so the way this works is they brewed this beer 2.5 years ago. It was not actually a full 3 years, but 2.5 years ago, they brewed this kind of big old ale, like a caramel bomb with raisin and honey, and then they threw that in some bourbon barrels. So 8 months in the bourbon barrels, racked it out, left 25% of the liquid behind. So the rest of that goes into brandy barrels. 8 months, and then they racked that off and left similar proportion behind, and that went into sherry barrels. And these are so the progression is brandy, or I'm sorry, bourbon, brandy, sherry barrels. And then each time that they moved the beer along, they left a bunch of it not a bunch, but a significant portion of it behind, and topped it with a fresh version of that beer. So the idea is every year they'll be doing this progression through again. So there's a lot going on in that, and they're selling these bottles it's 500 milliliter bottle for $25, and it is really something. It's the super deep and complex. The sherry is definitely that's the last barrel, so I guess it kind of makes sense, but you can feel that kind of that vanilla kind of oaky, spirity brandy or the bourbon aspect. There's a little bit of that kind of more vinous, grapey, brandy stuff, and then there's the sherry, which is like this kind of raisiny, almost prune, and then it's really something. And then that all sounds pretty like kind of sweet, but it's pretty well balanced, and it ended up the beer went into the first barrel around like 10 to 12% is what Kevin Wright, brewmaster Kevin Wright, told me. It finished at 16, so it picks up a ton of spirit, character, and alcohol too. And so the thing that's really interesting to me is like these barrels are aging, and then they're going to be swapped out. So like for the version that they just brewed, they swapped out the bourbon barrels for not clean, but fresh barrels, because you can't use barrels forever and keep getting that spirit character. So each iteration is going to have different kind of barrel emphasis, maybe like maybe this first year the bourbon is a little bit more forward because I don't know. It's all super. There's a ton of moving parts with it, and I think verticals of this thing, like probably 3 years out, are going to be super interesting. And I bought a couple extra bottles just so I could do that, because I think this is
nice. So my misunderstanding, what you're describing is some of that original beer that went into those first barrels still in the barrels now?
Yeah. The idea is to keep. I mean, this is inspired by the sherry. There's this one distillery, PX Sherry, that Kevin specifically cited. He got a chance to try this, and they've been doing this for like 300 years or 200 years or something. So like there's liquid, like certain molecules or something that might be like 200 years old. And
that are still in
this beer, this first version isn't technically a Solera because none of the old beer is still in here. It's just, it's just moving through these barrels. But it's all going to be, like, next year there will be, and that adds probably a little bit of like, it's like depth and kind of complexity on top of the three barrels doing their thing. You might get a little bit of oxidation and kind of that, like, just like the terroir of like the old stuff. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. There's not, I mean, brewers are certain types of brewers, like Third Space, are very wary of saying that nobody else is doing anything like this. I don't think anybody's really doing anything like this, at least with this kind of beer. Solera is a pretty well established concept for sours, where you're leaving some behind to populate the
next generation
that happens.
Yeah.
So that's how basically how the beer propagates. But this is different. This is about age and complexity and just kind of changing the actual liquid rather than continuing it on in a way that is consistent. So I don't know. That's all. I just want to say it's a really cool beer, and you probably want to try it. So
sounds really cool.
So the party is Saturday, which is in 2 days, and as you can see here, you can click here to pre-order 5 bottles, and that's why Chris said that when Chris said I ordered that, I'm assuming that's how you ordered them, right?
Yeah, and you can pick them up. You don't have to pick them up on Saturday, so it's a limit of 5, and they're out there. They made there are 34 barrels involved in the whole process here. So, that's there's a fair amount of this, but I think they're holding some back for. Well, I told them that maybe I should, this is maybe too much, but like I was talking with Andy Gale, and I'm like, you should probably do some like verticals for this in 3 years, right? Like,
Right.
$100 pack of like that's I don't know. Like, 'cause I think after this beer hits tomorrow or Saturday, I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this, in future years, and just seeing how this thing ages and progresses, not just in the bottle, but the actual, like, it's going to be different every year, by design. So it's pretty cool.
And we may not be able to say that other brewers aren't doing this, but we could pretty much firmly say that no one else in Wisconsin's doing
Oh,
this.
no,
Right?
no. Yeah, no.
Right. Okay.
So, and again,
we're Badger Beer Hour, so
this version isn't exactly like, this one is not really a Solera because of the way that Solera works. Like, they haven't put any of that. There's none of this. This is all essentially fresh beer. I mean, it's 2.5 years old.
It's going to be a Solera next
Gotcha.
year.
It will, right.
Starting next year.
So you'll start to see that extra kind of extraness next year and in the following years.
Cool.
Very cool. Thanks, Chris. That's really cool. So that's Saturday. They're gonna have food trucks, everything. So if you're out in Milwaukee, hit that up.
Mm-hmm.
What we got
next item on our list is Hometown Brew Down, which I believe is a beer festival that you wanted to talk about in Verona.
Yeah, real quick. It's a small, I would call it homely brew fest. It's smallish. If you are wary of crowds, this is a good one for you. It's outdoors, and you'll be able to have pretty much a really good selection of Wisconsin breweries. 150 beers and 50 breweries, I believe it is. Fantastic event. You can get in and out. I met for the first time the owners of Hop House, and I'm still friends with them. Phil and his wife, they're fucking great. Excuse my language, but but I met them there. So it's one of those beer fests where it's not like the Great Taste, where it's Great Taste is great. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of people milling around. This one's a really hometown brew town. It's a really homely one, and I suggest if people want. Yep, and I suggest if people are interested and want to get out, it's gonna be a nice weekend, I believe. One of the last really good fall weekends to start. So that's a good one. Yep, in Verona, check it out. I will not be there this year, but I highly recommend it. Awesome. What else is going
on? We got a couple Oktoberfests of note. We have Parched Eagle here in Madison. It's doing their Oktoberfest this weekend. Lazy Monk up in Eau Claire. If you stop by there, you will see Landon and his family serving brats.
Landon?
Yeah, man.
Tell us about it real quick.
So they had one last weekend, but they've done this in the past where they do 2 separate weekends, usually 2 Saturdays. Last weekend ended up happening to be a really, really busy time here in Eau Claire. There was all kinds of stuff going on. So their Oktoberfest Saturday last weekend wasn't very busy. This Saturday, hopefully it'll be a little more busy if you're anywhere in the area. Great beer, good times. They have a big Oktoberfest display, like history of Oktoberfest, German theme type things. You can register to win a $200 gift card if you complete this little thing, so all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, like Andy said, we'll be there cooking up broths for people. So
it's always a fun time. I used to go there every year as well.
It'd be great.
So
excellent. Thanks, Landon.
Yeah.
And then Valkyrie Brewing is doing their Oktoberfest on October 2nd. They always do it the first weekend in October. But then pivoting back to this Saturday, we our friends at Giant Jones, Jessica, it's her birthday, or she's celebrating her birthday.
40th, yes.
It's a big 4-0.
So jump in there and go have a beer with her, and that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And let's see the I'm sorry, you go.
No, you can.
So another big one around here is the Wisconsin Brewing Pumpkin Chunk. They I don't know if you guys have ever been out to Wisconsin Brewing. They got a nice sprawling complex out there, with a big lake and a nice area with for concerts and stuff like that.
Right.
But they do a pumpkin chuck out there. I've never been out. I've heard
Hmm.
it's fun. They're out there chucking pumpkins and carving pumpkins, and they have special beer, and they have live music and food and tattoos and shenanigans and stuff for families and all that. So I believe that is this weekend, right? That is
I think so.
yeah, that is Saturday.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry. This is Saturday, October 9th.
Oh, okay. So
it's
that'll
next
be coming
week.
up. Yep.
Right. Coming up before we come back on live on the 20th.
2
That'll
weeks,
be
I
going
think.
on.
But yeah.
Yep, or 3, something like that. But yeah, pumpkin chucking, if you're into all of that, absolutely look that up as far as Wisconsin Brewing goes.
Yeah. Might have to go. Sounds like fun.
I hear nothing but good about it. And last and certainly not least, we have
another anniversary party. So it looks like Raised Grain Brewing Company is celebrating 6 years this year. So it's a week-long celebration with beer releases and live music, and that's in Wauwatosa. And it starts. It started on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're in the middle of this week. Yeah. Looks like tonight they had bands and trivia. Saturday they have tomorrow they have a beer release, and then Saturday it looks like you can go and watch the Badgers play. You have bands, all kinds of stuff going on. Man, that seems to be, people are starting to do that now, which is like have birthday weeks,
right?
Birthday weekends. So that's kind of like, they're just.
Although it seems like Saturday is still going to be like the big party because it's the weekend.
Right.
That's when most people can go. But it's cool that they're like spreading it out for like if you can't make it Saturday, because as we've discussed, there's so much else going on Saturday.
This is
like,
true.
You could spread it out and like maybe hit them up tomorrow.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, that wasn't last. Last and certainly not least is Black Husky.
Oh, right. Yep.
They announced their first sanctioned strongman competition. Contestants, male and females. They decided to kick Oktoberfest up a notch with a 2-day event starting Saturday at 10 a.m. Everything happens on one day. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. It's going to be a busy weekend. So,
but it looks like
they're Ferris Bueller to hit it all.
Right.
Like time traveler or something.
Yeah. Yep. And our notes here say that there's going to be Firkins and there's going to be free beer while the Firkin lasts. So free Firkin beer, which is enough for me to get up and get going.
Yeah. That's a good way to get people in the door for sure. Although it also looks like they have Hammerschlagen, which is always fun if you've never played.
I was going to say, Oktoberfest food, a polka band, yodeling demonstrations, and a contest. I don't know what mass crew is.
I'm not sure what that word is either.
And the best dog costume contest. Oh man, this sounds fun. The event starts off with the Firkin tapping tomorrow, 9/24, and then the festivities continue till 10, and then they start back up on Saturday. And I love this where they're, it's multi-day events. So we can't fit everything on one day. So we're going to like spread this out.
Yep.
And that's good for, everybody. People are still just trying to get out, especially before it gets cold. So we had a whole bunch of events this month.
Yeah. So
excellent.
You guys got a busy weekend coming up. You better get out there.
Yeah, it's a very big Saturday in the Milwaukee area, as Chris has said here. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to it. I think everybody should be looking forward to it. So we have one more thing that we have to talk about here. So, fellas, we got it's nice to be back. Again, we were a week delayed, but it's really nice to see all your faces. And I just wanted to see if there's any parting comments.
Just glad to have you back, Greg. Glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah.
Yay! And if anybody, so we want to hit all the events. And we want all breweries, if there's any big events that we miss, y'all need to call and text the Badger Beer hotline and tell us. Please let us know. We try to cover the whole state. We got Chris in Milwaukee, Andy and I in Madison. We got Landon upstate. But, man, it's a big state. And there's a lot of breweries. And there's a lot of good going on. So y'all need to help us by highlighting those and sending us tips anywhere so we can make sure that we got it. Any last parting shots?
It's been a good month, man.
All right, man. I love you guys. We'll see you next month.
Thanks for watching, Al.